The tension in the room was palpable as Nathan held up the final photograph, Sophia and her lover entering the hotel. The crowd of friends and family gasped, their judgmental stares cutting through Sophia's composure. "So this," Nathan said coldly, his voice steady and filled with resolve, "is your idea of working out at the gym?" Sophia's facade crumbled as tears streamed down her face, and Lucas, seething with anger, hurled a glass across the room, narrowly missing the man. This was the moment where everything unraveled, raw, emotional, and unforgettable. But before we dive deeper into this story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments below. If you're enjoying this, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our future stories. Nathan and Sophia had been married for 30 years, building a life together that seemed happy and stable on the surface. They had a close-knit family dynamic, raising their 17-year-old son Lucas in a loving home. However, in recent months, Sophia's behavior began to change. She started spending an unusual amount of time at the gym, a place she had previously only visited casually. She became meticulous about her appearance, adopting new beauty routines and buying clothes that accentuated her newfound attention to fitness. Her frequent absences from home became increasingly noticeable, with vague explanations about errands or extended workouts. Lucas, a perceptive teenager, couldn't help but notice his mother's growing secrecy. He often caught her smiling to herself while texting someone late at night, and her once open demeanor turned evasive when questioned about her activities. Lucas's unease grew as Sophia's behavior became harder to ignore. The family, once a picture of unity, now seemed fractured by an invisible force. Nathan, though seemingly unaware, began noticing Sophia's increasing distance, while Lucas silently wrestled with his growing suspicions. Beneath the surface of their ordinary routines, the seeds of a deeper betrayal were quietly being sown. Lucas had been harboring suspicions about his mother for weeks, watching her growing secrecy and change in behavior with increasing unease. The warmth that once defined her interactions with him and Nathan seemed to have cooled, replaced by distracted smiles and hastily explained absences. Every unanswered question about her whereabouts added to the gnawing doubt in his mind. Unable to contain his curiosity and frustration any longer, Lucas decided to take matters into his own hands. One unseasonably warm afternoon, Lucas left school earlier than usual. He had overheard Sophia telling Nathan she planned to spend the afternoon at the gym. Instead of heading home, Lucas made his way toward the gym, a familiar location he had passed many times. Arriving there, he parked his car a short distance away and waited, unsure of what he might find. His heart pounded in his chest as he scanned the parking lot, hoping he was wrong about his suspicion. Within minutes, he spotted Sophia arriving in her car. However, instead of heading inside the gym as she claimed, she walked toward a small cafe across the street. Intrigued, Lucas got out of his car and followed her, keeping a safe distance. As he reached the cafe's window, his stomach dropped. Sophia wasn't alone. Sitting across from her at a small table was a middle-aged man, impeccably dressed and wearing a confident smile. Lucas watched as his mother leaned in close, laughing softly at something the man said. His heart sank further as he observed their easy, intimate mannerisms, touching hands across the table, exchanging smiles that spoke volumes. It wasn't the behavior of casual acquaintances or colleagues. There was an undeniable air of familiarity and affection between them. Lucas stood frozen, unsure of what to do. His mother's betrayal wasn't just a possibility anymore, it was unfolding before his eyes. As he continued to watch, Sophia and the man got up from their seats and walked out of the cafe together. Lucas followed them cautiously, his heart pounding louder with every step. They strolled down the street, laughing and talking, completely at ease in each other's company. The casualness of their interaction contrasted sharply with the storm brewing inside Lucas. He maintained a safe distance as they stopped in front of a nearby boutique hotel. Sophia glanced around briefly before entering, her hand clasped tightly in the man's. Lucas felt his entire world tilt as he stood there, rooted in place. He couldn't believe what he had just seen. His mother, the woman he had always seen as a pillar of their family, was walking into a hotel with another man. The shock hit him like a tidal wave, and anger quickly followed. How could she do this to their family, to his father, to him? His mind raced with a mix of emotions, betrayal, sadness, and fury. He wanted to confront her right then and there, but his instincts told him to hold back. Rushing in without a plan wouldn't solve anything, and he wasn't ready to face her or the man she was with. Instead, Lucas retreated to his car and sat behind the wheel, trying to process what he had just witnessed. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as tears of frustration and pain welled in his eyes. The image of Sophia laughing with the man, holding his hand and walking into the hotel replayed in his mind like a cruel loop. He had always trusted his mother, but now that trust was shattered. The drive home was a blur, with Lucas barely registering the familiar streets passing by. When he pulled into the driveway, he sat in the car for several minutes, staring blankly ahead. He didn't know how to face Nathan or what to say to him. Should he keep this discovery to himself? Could he protect his father from the truth? Questions swirled in his mind, but the one thing he knew for certain was that their lives would never be the same again. Lucas finally stepped inside the house, where Nathan greeted him with a warm smile. Seeing his father's face, so full of trust and love, made Lucas's heart ache even more. He wasn't sure how or when, but he knew he would have to tell Nathan the truth. For now, though, he needed time to sort through the chaos in his mind. As he retreated to his room, Lucas vowed to protect his father and their family, no matter how painful the truth might be. That evening, Lucas sat in his room, replaying the painful images in his mind. The betrayal he had uncovered weighed heavily on him, and he knew he couldn't keep it a secret. His father, Nathan, deserved to know the truth, no matter how devastating it might be. With a deep breath, Lucas mustered the courage to confront him. As Nathan sat in the living room, reading the day's paper, Lucas entered, his expression grim. Nathan immediately noticed the tension in his son's demeanor and put the paper aside. "What's wrong, Lucas?" he asked gently, concern etched on his face. Lucas hesitated, unsure of how to begin. "Dad, there's something I need to tell you. About Mom," he said, his voice trembling. Nathan's brows furrowed. "What is it, son?" With a deep breath, Lucas recounted everything he had seen that day. Sophia meeting the man at the cafe, their affectionate behavior, and their entrance into the hotel together. His voice cracked as he described the moment he realized his mother was betraying their family. Nathan listened silently, his face growing more solemn with each passing word. When Lucas finished, tears brimming in his eyes, Nathan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Thank you for telling me, Lucas," he said calmly, though the pain in his voice was unmistakable. "I know this wasn't easy for you, but we won't let this destroy us." Lucas looked at his father, surprised by his composure. "Aren't you angry?" he asked. Nathan sighed deeply. "I am, Lucas, but anger won't fix this. I need to think clearly, for both of us." Determined to handle the situation strategically, Nathan decided to protect himself and Lucas, both emotionally and legally. He knew that confronting Sophia without evidence could lead to denial or manipulation, and he needed to ensure they were prepared for whatever might come next. The following day, Nathan contacted a reputable private investigator. In their meeting, he explained the situation, sparing no details about Sophia's behavior and Lucas's discovery. The investigator, a seasoned professional, assured Nathan that he would gather solid evidence to confirm Sophia's infidelity. Over the next few weeks, the investigator trailed Sophia discreetly, documenting her activities. Nathan avoided confronting her during this time, maintaining a sense of normalcy at home for Lucas's sake. Though it was emotionally taxing, he stayed focused on their goal, uncovering the truth with undeniable proof. Lucas, though still struggling with the betrayal, found solace in his father's calm and decisive approach. They spent more time together, going for walks and working on home projects to distract themselves from the weight of their situation. Nathan often reminded Lucas of their strength as a family, reassuring him that they would get through this together. When the private investigator returned with his findings, Nathan reviewed the evidence, photos, videos, and detailed reports of Sophia's meetings with the man. The evidence was damning, confirming Lucas's account and leaving no room for doubt. With the proof in hand, Nathan began planning the next step. He wouldn't let Sophia's actions tear their family apart. For now, he remained resolute, ready to confront the truth and reclaim control over their lives. Nathan knew that confronting Sophia privately wouldn't have the impact necessary to hold her accountable for her actions. He needed a plan that would expose the truth fully and decisively, leaving no room for denial or manipulation. After careful thought, he decided to stage a family gathering at their home, turning it into an opportunity for a bold, public confrontation. The invitations were sent under the guise of a casual family dinner. Nathan invited Sophia, Lucas, and, under the pretense of goodwill, the man Sophia had been secretly meeting. What Sophia didn't know was that Nathan had also invited a few close friends and relatives, people who cared about their family deeply and deserved to know the truth. On the evening of the gathering, the atmosphere in the house was warm and welcoming, with Nathan maintaining his usual calm demeanor. Lucas, though nervous, trusted his father's plan and played along, greeting guests and helping set the table. Sophia arrived fashionably late, smiling as she introduced the man as a good friend to the rest of the group. As the evening progressed, Nathan let the conversation flow naturally, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal what he had uncovered. The tension in the room was subtle but palpable, especially for Lucas, who found it increasingly difficult to hide his emotions. Finally, as dinner wound down, Nathan stood and tapped his glass to get everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice steady but commanding. "I wanted to share something important with all of you, something that has deeply affected our family." Sophia's smile faltered slightly as she exchanged a glance with her companion, but she said nothing. Nathan continued, pulling out a manila envelope from a nearby drawer. "For weeks I've noticed changes in our home," he said, his eyes briefly meeting Lucas's for support. "I've also come to learn that appearances can be deceiving." He opened the envelope and began laying out photographs on the table for everyone to see. They showed Sophia and the man together at various locations: the cafe, intimate dinners, and, most damningly, entering the boutique hotel. Gasps filled the room as the guests took in the undeniable evidence. Sophia's face went pale, and her companion shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Nathan's voice grew colder as he held up the final photo. "So this," he said, locking eyes with Sophia, "is your idea of working out at the gym?" The room fell into stunned silence. Sophia stammered, trying to form an explanation, but the evidence was irrefutable. The weight of judgment from the gathered friends and family was crushing. The man, attempting to defend himself, began to speak, but Nathan cut him off. "I invited you here so you could see the harm you've caused, not just to me, but to this entire family," he said, his voice firm and resolute. Sophia finally broke down, tears streaming down her face as she confessed to her actions. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she said, her voice shaking. But Nathan remained composed. "You didn't just hurt me," he said quietly. "You broke the trust that held this family together. That's something I can't ignore." The confrontation ended with Sophia and her companion leaving in shame, while the gathered friends and relatives offered support to Nathan and Lucas. Though painful, the evening marked a turning point for Nathan, who reclaimed his strength and integrity by refusing to let the betrayal define his family's future. Sophia's composure crumbled under the weight of the evidence laid out before her. The photos, videos, and damning timeline of her secret meetings with the man were undeniable. The judgmental stares from the gathered friends and family pierced her like daggers, and she could no longer maintain the facade she had so carefully constructed. Tears streamed down her face as she sank into her chair, her voice shaking as she began to speak. I never wanted it to come to this," she stammered, avoiding Nathan's piercing gaze. "I've been unhappy for so long, Nathan. I felt invisible, like I wasn't enough anymore." Her words, intended to explain her actions, only deepened the tension in the room. Nathan's expression remained cold, unmoved by her attempts to justify the betrayal. "So your solution was to destroy the trust we built over 30 years? To hurt Lucas and me in the process?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with bitterness. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she whispered, her hands trembling. "You didn't mean to," Nathan cut her off sharply. "Every choice you made, every lie you told, was intentional. Don't pretend it wasn't." The room fell into a tense silence as Sophia looked around, her shame reflected in the disappointed faces of their friends and family. She opened her mouth to respond, but the sound of a chair scraping against the floor interrupted her. Lucas, who had been sitting quietly with clenched fists and a storm of emotions brewing inside him, stood abruptly. His eyes burned with anger as he turned his attention to the man sitting next to Sophia. "You," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "What kind of person walks into someone else's family and tears it apart like this?" The man, clearly uncomfortable but trying to maintain his composure, held up his hands defensively. "Look, I didn't mean to cause trouble," he said, his voice calm but condescending. "Your mother and I—" "Don't you dare call her my mother," Lucas snapped, his voice rising. "You're nothing but a liar and a coward." The man started to reply, but Lucas's anger boiled over. He grabbed a nearby glass from the table and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall, narrowly missing the man's head. Gasps filled the room as everyone froze, stunned by the outburst. Nathan quickly stepped in, grabbing Lucas by the shoulders and pulling him back. "Lucas, stop," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We're better than this. He's not worth it." Lucas, breathing heavily, stared at his father for a moment before nodding reluctantly. He sat back down, his anger simmering but contained. As the tension in the room settled, Nathan turned his attention back to the man. "You think you can justify this?" he asked coldly. "Let me make something clear. You're not just a homewrecker. You're a fraud." The man's confident demeanor faltered, and he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Nathan reached into the envelope of evidence and pulled out a report from the private investigator. "This," Nathan said, holding up the document, "is a detailed history of your relationships. You target wealthy women, gain their trust, and drain their assets. Sophia wasn't your first victim, and I doubt she'll be your last." Sophia's eyes widened in shock as she turned to look at the man. "Is that true?" she asked, her voice trembling. The man hesitated, his silence confirming Nathan's accusations. Nathan's voice grew colder as he continued. "You didn't just betray us, Sophia," he said, his gaze unwavering. "He betrayed you, and you let him." Sophia buried her face in her hands, overwhelmed by the weight of her mistakes. The man, realizing he was cornered, stood abruptly. "I think it's time for me to leave," he muttered, heading toward the door. Nathan didn't stop him. "Get out," he said firmly, "and don't come back. If I see you near my family again, I'll make sure you face the consequences for everything you've done." As the man left, the room was filled with a heavy silence. Sophia remained seated, her sobs the only sound as the gravity of her choices sank in. Lucas sat quietly, still fuming, but grateful for his father's restraint. Nathan, standing tall and resolute, looked around the room at the faces of their friends and family. "This ends here," he said firmly. "I won't let his actions or Sophia's tear us apart any further." Though the night had been painful and raw, Nathan's strength and clarity gave Lucas hope. Despite everything, they would find a way to rebuild their lives, stronger and wiser than before. In the days following the confrontation, Sophia's world began to unravel. The man she had trusted so completely, who had promised her excitement and passion, vanished without a trace. Initially, she believed he would return, but when she attempted to access her savings, she was met with devastating news. Her accounts had been drained. Every cent she had entrusted to him, believing in his charm and false promises, was gone. Panicked, Sophia reached out to the bank, but there was little they could do. The transactions had been authorized by her, albeit under his influence. The financial stability she once took for granted had evaporated, leaving her broke and desperate. Swallowing her pride, Sophia turned to Nathan, hoping for a lifeline. She appeared on his doorstep one evening, her face streaked with tears, pleading for his help. "Nathan, please," she begged, her voice cracking. "I made a mistake. I didn't know he was going to do this to me. I need your help." Nathan's expression was cold, his resolve unshaken. "You made your bed, Sophia," he said firmly. "Now lie in it." Sophia's pleas grew more desperate, but Nathan remained unmoved. He refused to jeopardize his and Lucas's stability for someone who had betrayed them so deeply. Rejected and humiliated, Sophia began to spiral. In her desperation to reclaim some semblance of control, she started showing up uninvited at Lucas's school events. She appeared at his soccer games and parent-teacher conferences, often creating public scenes that embarrassed him. At one game, she stood on the sidelines yelling loudly for Lucas in an attempt to connect with him. Her efforts, however, only drew awkward stares from other parents and players. When Lucas ignored her, she stormed onto the field during halftime, pleading with him to talk to her. "Lucas, I'm your mother," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "You can't just shut me out." Lucas, humiliated and furious, walked away without responding. The public display left him the target of ridicule at school, adding to the burden he was already carrying. As Sophia's desperation grew, her former lover sought his own twisted revenge. Blaming Nathan for exposing him and ruining his plans, the man began sending threatening messages. "You think you've won," one message read, "but this isn't over." Nathan, refusing to be intimidated, took immediate action. He contacted the police, filed a restraining order, and hired a security company to install cameras and alarms at their home. He also made sure Lucas was briefed on safety precautions, urging him to remain vigilant. Despite the tension, Nathan's decisive actions reassured Lucas. "We're going to be fine," Nathan told him. "This man thrives on fear, and we won't give him the satisfaction." The added security measures brought a sense of calm to their home, though the emotional scars from the ordeal lingered. For Nathan and Lucas, the priority was clear: to protect their family and move forward, leaving the chaos of Sophia's betrayal and its fallout behind. Though the road ahead would be challenging, Nathan's unwavering strength and commitment to Lucas offered a glimmer of hope for a brighter future. Word of Sophia's affair and the explosive confrontation quickly spread through the tight-knit community. Friends and neighbors, once charmed by her vivacious personality, now whispered behind her back. The photos and evidence Nathan had revealed were too shocking to stay contained, and soon Sophia became the subject of gossip in every social circle. Invitations to parties and events dried up, and even casual acquaintances avoided her in public. Sophia's fall from grace was swift and brutal. At the grocery store, she felt the weight of judgmental stares and overheard whispers. At the gym, the place where her affair had started, she was met with cold indifference. Once a respected figure in the community, she had become a social pariah. The scandal reached Lucas's high school, where the students proved even less forgiving. Lucas, already dealing with the emotional fallout of his mother's betrayal, became the target of cruel jokes and taunts. "Hey, Lucas," one classmate sneered in the hallway, "is your mom hitting on the math teacher now, or is she still sticking to hotel managers?" Lucas's patience snapped. Without hesitation, he shoved the classmate against a locker, his fists clenched in fury. "Say one more thing and you'll regret it," Lucas growled. The commotion attracted a crowd, and a teacher quickly intervened to break up the altercation. Lucas was sent to the principal's office, where he received a warning, but the incident only deepened his frustration and embarrassment. At home, he confided in Nathan, who offered words of encouragement. "You don't have to fight their battles, Lucas," Nathan said. "They don't define you, and neither does this situation. We'll get through it together." Amid the growing isolation, Sophia became desperate to repair her shattered reputation and family. She decided on a grand gesture, convinced it would prove her remorse and win Nathan's forgiveness. One afternoon, uninvited and unannounced, Sophia appeared at Nathan's workplace. Dressed simply and visibly nervous, she entered the office clutching a bouquet of flowers. Nathan, startled by her presence, quickly stood up from his desk. His coworkers paused their tasks, intrigued by the unexpected scene. "Nathan," Sophia began, her voice trembling, "I know I've hurt you. I know I've destroyed everything we built together, but I'm here to say I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Her voice cracked as she continued, the weight of her guilt evident. "Please, Nathan," she pleaded. "I'm asking for another chance. For Lucas, for us, for the life we had." Nathan listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When she finished, the room fell into a tense hush, with his coworkers watching expectantly. Finally, Nathan spoke, his voice calm but resolute. "Sophia, I don't doubt that you regret what you've done, but regret doesn't erase the damage you caused. The life I want doesn't include betrayal." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes, and for a moment she stood frozen, as if hoping he might change his mind. But Nathan's expression remained firm, leaving no room for hope. With her apology rejected, Sophia turned and left the office, her shoulders slumped in defeat. As Nathan returned to his desk, his co-workers offered quiet support, but he didn't need their validation. For the first time since the ordeal began, he felt a sense of closure. He had stood his ground, protected his dignity, and prioritized his future over the mistakes of the past. The decision to move came after much deliberation. Nathan knew that staying in their current town, where the shadows of Sophia's betrayal lingered, would make it harder for him and Lucas to heal. The gossip, the whispers, and the constant reminders of their past were suffocating. So, with a mixture of apprehension and hope, Nathan sold the house and found a modest home in a smaller, supportive community a few hours away. The move signaled the start of a new chapter. Their new neighborhood was quiet and welcoming, free from the judgment and gossip that had plagued them. Nathan enrolled Lucas in a new school, where he could begin to rebuild his confidence without the weight of his peers' ridicule. To help Lucas process the pain and anger he still carried, Nathan arranged for him to see a therapist. At first, Lucas resisted, insisting he didn't need to talk about what had happened. But with time, the sessions became a safe space for him to express the feelings he had buried so deeply. Slowly but surely, Lucas began to find his footing again, reclaiming his sense of self. For Nathan, the healing process took a different form. In the chaos of the last year, he had lost touch with himself, focusing solely on keeping his family afloat. Now, with space to breathe, he revisited an old passion he had abandoned years ago, painting. Nathan set up a small studio in their new home, filling it with canvases, brushes, and paints. His work started out tentative, almost hesitant, as he reacquainted himself with the craft. But as the days passed, his confidence grew, and so did his ambition. He began painting large public murals for the town, capturing scenes of resilience, nature, and hope. His work drew admiration from the community, and for the first time in a long while, Nathan felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment. One afternoon, while working on a mural in the town square, Nathan met Evelyn. She was passing by with her dog, pausing to admire his work. Her curiosity turned into a conversation, and they quickly discovered they shared more than a love for art. Evelyn had her own story of heartbreak. She too had endured betrayal in her marriage, and like Nathan, had rebuilt her life from the ground up. Their shared experiences formed an immediate bond. They began meeting for coffee, their conversations flowing easily from their struggles to their aspirations. Evelyn's warmth and strength were a balm for Nathan's wounded heart, and in her he found someone who truly understood the depths of his journey. For Lucas, Evelyn was a welcome presence as well. She never tried to replace Sophia, but instead became a supportive figure who treated him with respect and kindness. She offered advice when needed and gave him the space to heal at his own pace. As months turned into a year, the connection between Nathan and Evelyn deepened. Their relationship wasn't rushed or dramatic. It was built on trust, understanding, and mutual growth. Together, they became a source of joy and healing for one another, proving that even after the deepest pain, love and happiness could still be found. The new beginning wasn't without its challenges, but for Nathan and Lucas, it was a fresh start they both desperately needed. Lucas began excelling in school, his confidence and happiness slowly returning. Nathan's murals became a beloved part of the community, with his work gaining recognition far beyond their small town. And with Evelyn by his side, Nathan found a renewed sense of hope and optimism for the future. For the first time in a long while, their lives were no longer defined by betrayal, but by resilience, creativity, and the strength to move forward. Together, they embraced the possibilities of this new chapter, ready to face whatever came next. In the quiet moments of reflection, Nathan realized how far he and Lucas had come. The pain of betrayal, once an all-consuming shadow, had given way to a stronger, more united family. Nathan had become a symbol of strength, not just for himself, but for Lucas and their community. Through his actions, he had shown that self-respect and integrity could withstand even the deepest wounds. Sitting on the porch one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Nathan turned to Lucas. "You know," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "sometimes, to rebuild happiness, you must have the courage to tear down what no longer works." Lucas nodded, understanding the truth of his father's words. He had seen firsthand the power of resilience, both in his father and in himself. Nathan had taught him that while life could be cruel and unpredictable, it was possible to rise above the pain and create something beautiful from the wreckage. With Evelyn now a part of their lives, the family felt whole again, not in the way it once had been, but in a way that was new and filled with promise. Together, they embraced a future defined by hope, love, and the lessons they had learned along the way. As they sat together, laughter filling the air and joy returning to their lives, it was clear that Nathan and Lucas had not just survived, they had thrived. Their journey had transformed them, proving that even in the face of betrayal, resilience could light the way to a brighter future.